After packing up our tents and loading up the van, we concluded the Devil's Den portion of the trip and went on to the next. Our goal today was to drive to our friend Steve's house. On the way, we would stop by St. Louis and get some barbecue ribs. On the way out of the park, the check engine light came on again, which is always a thrill. The car seemed to drive fine, so we kept going. We stopped in Bentonville for some brunch and ate at First Watch. So we're in what, Bentonville?
Yeah, Bentonville.
Bentonville.
Arkansas.
Yeah, we pulled over because we had a check engine light. Turned out to be something with a catalytic converter, so not too worried about that.
Yeah.
It's 11 o'clock, so we figured we'd grab ourselves some lunch. Thomas decided he wanted to try First Watch. It's a egg and pancake place. Never really been here before, though it's a chain. Afterwards, we went to an AutoZone to get the check engine light diagnosed. It was an issue with the catalytic converter, so we got some cat clean and continued on. As we passed through Springfield, Missouri, we discovered they had a Buc-ee's there. We pulled in for gas and snacks and thoroughly explored the store. A Buc-ee's is a Buc-ee's. They look the same, they sound the same, and they even smell the same. We're going to have a tour of the place. Well, what do you think?
It's a Buc-ee's.
Yep. After gassing up, our catalytic converter issue went away, so that was a relief as it seemed to be gas related. Continuing on, Tom got suckered in by some signs along the way for the candy factory. We stopped in hoping to find some exotic gummies or sodas, but were disappointed. We continued on to St. Louis. Our goal in St. Louis was to have some good St. Louis baby back barbecue ribs. Unfortunately, the place that was most highly rated was closed by the time we got to town, and so we had to eat at a chain called Sugar Fire. Here we are eating some genuine St. Louis barbecue. Take a bite. Some good stuff. It did not disappoint. We each got the rib brisket sausage plate combo. There were several types of sauce to choose from, and all the meats were well smoked. Leaving Sugar Fire, Thomas took over driving and we crossed the Mississippi. Eventually, after a long day's drive, we arrived at Champaign, Illinois, at Steve's house. Once there, we got reacquainted with Steve, his wife Oi, their 2 dogs, and the parrot. It had been about 8 years since Thomas had seen them last. We were able to have a warm shower and a warm place to sleep, and that was nice. The next morning, Oi made us breakfast, and we loaded up Steve's car and we went out to the gun range. This was our first exposure to long-range shooting. Steve had gotten a new scope on one of his rifles, and we sighted it in at 100 yards and then started moving back. Tom was still hobbling and Steve has his own mobility issues, so it was nice to have Thomas around to do all the running. After 100 yards, we moved back to 300 yards and then 500 yards. We were all getting hits on a 6-inch steel plate at that distance, which was very exciting. After shooting, we went back to the house and Oi fixed us some yummy Thai soup. It was so good that Tom got the recipe. We hung out with Steve and the dogs before taking a shower and going to bed. Thomas didn't sleep well that night because of his stuffy nose and Tom's snoring. So we went to Walmart in the morning and got some Zyrtec before enjoying another Oi cooked breakfast. After breakfast, we went back to the gun range. This time, we did pistols and carbines. Steve had several guns for us to try, including a Springfield copy of an FN High Power, a Staccato, a Lightwing carbine, and more. Once again, it was great to have Thomas. Tom's legs had recovered a bit, but he was still hobbling, so Thomas did all the running and picked up most of the brass. After having our time at the pistol range, we went out to the 700-yard rifle spot. The wind was both intense and varied, and we struggled to keep things on the table. Steve tried shooting at the targets, but wasn't getting any hits. Tom deployed his drone to observe the fire, but couldn't really see any splashes in the dirt. The wind was just too strong and varied to get anything consistent. We called it a day and went back to the house. Oi cooked some spicy chicken dish, spicy for us, not for her, and Thomas was wanting some dessert, so we decided to get some frozen yogurt. It was about 15 to 20 minutes away down by campus. For Thomas, this turned out to be a high point in the stay as we got to go check out the stores and area outside the University of Illinois campus. There were lots of Asian-themed restaurants in the area, which was fairly busy, as it was a Friday night. We walked up and down the main strip to check things out. Thomas was surprised by the number of Asian students, but on looking at the school's demographics, it was 20% Asian. We went into a frozen yogurt place that also sold bubble tea. We got some yogurt and ate it upstairs. For Thomas, it was refreshing to be around people his age versus just old people, and he had perked up a bit. Looking around was a typical college scene. Young people meeting new people, having new discussions about new ideas. Far more refreshing than old men rehashing the same points at home. After eating, we got yogurt for Steve and Oi, and then we headed back to the house. After that, Thomas and Steve had some conversations about graduating, getting a job, work, and other adult responsibilities before we went to bed. Some weather blew in that night with high winds and thunderstorms. We even had tornado sirens going off. We were a bit concerned, but Steve seemed to not worry, so we didn't. We got up in the morning and got everything packed up. Oi cooked us breakfast once again, and we said our goodbyes and headed out. The check engine light seemed to be an on-again, off-again thing as we gassed up. As we got out of town, the sky was quite gray and dusty from the dust that the storm had kicked up the night before. Looking on Google Maps, it seemed there had been several tornadoes that had been reported the previous day, but our route was tornado-free. Stop was St. Louis, where it was St. Patrick's Day. We saw some parades from the highway, but decided to skip. Once in town, we went to the Basilica St. Louis Catholic Cathedral. We had the fortune of walking in on a choir practice, which was mesmerizing with the acoustics of the place. Visiting this had been on Tom's to-do list, and he used his 360 camera to good effect, taking pictures of the massive cathedral. After leaving the church, we went to Pappy's, a highly rated barbecue place that had been closed on the way up. It was a popular place with a long line if you wanted to eat inside. We elected to eat outside, and they got us our ribs and brisket very quickly. The place was a bit better than Sugar Fire, which we had eaten at before. The ribs were the best, being plenty moist and tender.
We are back in St. Louis, and this time we're at Pappy's Smokehouse, which was closed the last time we were coming through here. So we've ordered some ribs and brisket and sides, and now we're about to give it a try.
It's gonna be good. Pickles are really good. Supposedly it's best barbecue in St. Louis, so I'll have to give it a try. Wow, look at that. It's tender.
Good?
Before leaving St. Louis, it didn't appear that we had enough gas to make it to Buc-ee's, so we stopped at a gas station. An interesting St. Patrick's Day float was going by while we gassed up. After leaving St. Louis, we stopped at a travel stop along the way for a restroom break. It was quite a setup for truckers. They even had a barber shop there. Our next stop and gas up was the Buc-ee's in Springfield. We got some snacks and whatnot, and Thomas took over driving. Thomas had wanted to do more driving today and less tomorrow, so we decided to push onward to Muskogee, Oklahoma for the night, where we had a hotel reservation. We got a bit of excitement in the town just outside of Muskogee when we got pulled over by the police. It seems there was an issue with our license plate tag and brake line. The officer gave us a warning, and Thomas handled the stop well. We stopped by an AutoZone afterwards, but they were already closed for the night. We got to our hotel room. It was pretty nice, and we stretched out, watched some video, and went to sleep. In the morning, after packing up, we went hunting for an AutoZone in Muskogee. This led us through a tour of the town, and I got the impression Muskogee was civilization in these parts. We got to an AutoZone, but we had to wait a few minutes for it to open. With a couple of borrowed screwdrivers, Tom fixed the brake light and the tag lights before continuing on our way. We wound our way through Oklahoma, passing a series of small towns. Every town had its cop-out in a speed trap just over the hill or around the bend as you came to town. It was so predictable it was comical. Crossing back into Texas, we added a few gallons of gas at a gas station that was also a very well-equipped fishing supply store. Then we got back to the Buc-ee's in Melissa, where we gassed up more and got some snacks. We continued to Dallas, where our destination was the Galleria Mall. There we went to Uniqlo, our favorite clothing store. We shopped there for an hour or so and made off with a good haul of clothing. From there we were both feeling hungry, but we were barbecued out. So we went to another favorite, Mod Pizza.
Okay, so after a successful haul at the Uniqlo at the Galleria, we ate ourselves some Mod Pizza, and now we're ready to head back. What do you think?
It's good food. Good trip. Finally going home.
After eating at Mod, Thomas took over driving for the last shuffle down I-35. It was painful as always with bump-and-go traffic, wrecks, construction zones, cops, and all the other usual circus acts. Passing the last Buc-ee's in Temple, we didn't need to stop, so we pressed on home and arrived safe and sound.